Did the transcendental summary number 2 go better than the summary number 1?
Oddly, yeah.
That's good. Okay. You're not committed yet.
I've been practicing it. It's just like I can't do it. And then we have to do SEO, all state, and then we have to kind of.
Okay, I'm having a hard time counting these. If you have extras, just leave them on the back. Need one more. We pass that back. Thank you.
She hated them. Oh, your mom?
Okay, our word today is anaphora.
Oh, I used hypophora in my transcendental.
You did?
That might have been a wrong move.
It works if you were talking about what her argument was, right? That's it. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So
We don't have homework this month?
So I am going to. Do you? I don't think you do.
Let's go.
There's
No, we
nothing
do.
next
We have
class.
homework today. It's
No, do next class. I don't think you
no.
do.
There's
I will
one. There's
check.
one due tonight.
What?
We have
next class.
no.
like,
The
Friday.
do this.
Oh, you'll have multiple choice corrections if you want to do them. That's it.
Wait, wasn't there something on the dashboard though? I swear.
There's something due today, but there's nothing due until.
There was an essay that was due this morning, and then we have something due at 11:59, right?
No. Oh, it might have been something that we're doing in class. Yeah. Okay. You're like, do you want homework?
No.
All right, so for anaphora. No, I don't have any chargers. I'm sorry. The
Did they
library
steal it?
has some. I am going to just write down the example first. So copy this example. It's not actually from Thoreau this time. I want to talk about a different one. So this is from Martin Luther King Jr.
I know that guy.
Oh, good for you.
I don't think so.
All right, I'm gonna start. It's a long one, so I'm gonna start shortening it.
That was me. I like said that.
Wait, did I get Georgia? No. That's right, so tiny.
You have seen my handwriting.
Example.
Do you think the definition is go back to Mississippi?
Dr. Borb, how long did it take
Yes.
to get your doctorate?
That'd be a great word.
Like just the PhD program or
Sure.
all of college?
All of college, all of college.
All of college was 11. 12 years.
Was that not painful?
Did you have like?
I would be in college for life if I could be.
Really?
Yeah, I love
Was
school.
college fun?
I loved college and I hated high school. So if you hate high school, that is your
That's an important question. Wait, where'd you get your doctorate from?
the University of Utah. Yeah, I did 5 years undergrad, 1 year master's degree, 6-year PhD.
Whoa.
My cousin had a quiz on the vertebrae yesterday.
That's awesome.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I can't think. Go back to the slums in the West.
Sorry, the slums and ghettos of our northern cities, knowing that somehow this situation can and will be changed.
This is bleeding over into my spectacles.
So this is from
That's a great idea.
a very famous speech that hopefully you've read or heard before. It's the I Have a Dream speech. And I want you to try and figure out what anaphora means. So this contains an anaphora. What pattern?
Go back, go back, go back.
Yes, okay. Part of it is repetition. Don't write down the definition.
Every
I
word
guess.
has a vowel.
No.
Probably the.
It's right here.
That's thinking.
All right, part of it is repetition. Where in the sentence is the repetition?
The beginning.
Okay, so we've got go back to, right? Yes, beginning of phrases. There it is. So repetition at the beginning,
So like a parallel sentence, but it's all one sentence.
yeah, of subsequent, well, it doesn't have to be.
Or like part of the same sentence.
No, sentences or clauses. So anaphora could be in separate sentences. They just need to be subsequent, which means that they are in, like, they're close together.
What does that say? So a parallel sentence. should be
Subsequent. So repetition at the beginning of subsequent sentences or clauses. So that means that if these were separate sentences, that can still be anaphora, that's fine. Yes.
With the essay revision, like, did you think that there's certain due dates?
End of September, always by the end of the deadline, so, yeah. Okay, go back to Mississippi, go back to Alabama, go back to South Carolina, go back to Georgia, go back to Louisiana, go back to the slums and ghettos of our northern cities, knowing that somehow this situation can and will be changed. He kind of has this all as one sentence, right? But we've got all of this anaphora going on. Go back to, go back to, go back to. Why do you think he uses the anaphora here? Yeah, Lyra.
Because it's addressed to different like types of people and not and like different groups of people rather than to one large entity.
Okay, types and groups of people. And he's saying to do that instead of to refer to them as all, to just go back to these places. Ben?
It's a call to action, and it since it's an anaphora, it really makes you remember it. So it's like remember the very really important part of the speech.
Okay, let's test that theory. So the call to action part is the go back to, right?
Yeah.
So you're supposed to go back to these places. So the context for this, the I Have a Dream speech, they are all there at the Capitol from all these different places, listening to Martin Luther King Jr. give this speech, right? Do you think that they were not planning to go back home? They probably were going back home, right? Like they didn't just move to DC just because he's there giving a speech, right? So the go back to part might not be the most important part of the call to action. The most important part might be this, that knowing that somehow this situation, right? But he chooses to repeat that part. So there's something that's being emphasized in this way that it's repetition. It's not necessarily the most important action that they need to perform, but there's something important about it, and that's why he's repeating. Lexi?
Okay, two things. One of the reasons I think is because he doesn't also put emphasis on it. And then the second reason, it's somewhat piggybacking off what Ali Rose said, but it's talking about the different types of people. I think the goal he has is to try to make it more personal, because if you were to go up to a group of people and be like, hey, you guys are amazing, like that's nice and stuff, but like it's not as personal. Whereas if you were to go up to a group of people and say, Billy, you're amazing, Tommy, you're amazing, Mary, you're amazing, then it's a little more personal. It's like, so instead of having a general vague like, you guys go back home, it's a people from here go back home, people from here go back home, and it's kind of like a personal thing, which like people seem to really be drawn whenever that kind of thing happens. And so I think he used this so people can kind of be like, I live in Alabama, and he's telling me to go. He called out Alabama specifically, like we're important, we're significant.
It's like an I see you type thing.
Yeah.
I can be the change because Martin Luther King Jr., he sees me. Abby?
I think it's the motivation behind it, because saying just like go back to Mississippi, that's just he's not actually saying like go home. He's saying that like knowing that the situation will change is showing that there's like go back with a new idea or a new like motivation on like how you're gonna live your life, who's gonna influence it.
Okay, good.
Changing your mindset the next time you go home.
Yeah, so it's like I think back then becomes a really important word, not just go home to Mississippi, but go back there. You have experienced something in Mississippi that has inspired you to come see my speech, right? And now you should return there, but you should return with a new set of eyes, a new perspective. I like that. Ashton?
I think by him just repeating all these things over and over again, it's just sort of like draining, maybe like putting it in our heads.
Okay, good.
Like his idea.
So there's that kind of like repetition equals memory, like Ben was talking about
Yeah.
too. So we can remember that thing. Yeah, Noah?
Well, if you look at where he's calling, like,
Yes.
it's very obvious, like even out of this, like out of context of the speech, you know that he's talking to like African Americans, because it says like go to places in the South, go back to the slums and ghettos of northern cities.
Yes.
That's very heavily populated with African Americans, and so for him to call to each of these states, he's kind of it's like re-emphasis almost that he's speaking particularly to.
Yes.
So the way that you go up and call each of your kids by name instead of saying, I love my children, kind of like what Lexi was saying. You're saying, go back to your home state of Mississippi, because he's putting emphasis on kind of the racist past, almost like each of these cities, even though they're very, very heavily populated with Black people, they're overwhelmingly recognized as like racist.
Yeah.
So it's like that weird juxtaposition almost where it's like, okay, well, it's very racist, but it's also very Black.
Yeah.
And so he's trying to help them in the situation by calling troops southern areas.
Good. Okay, good. And I think then it's really important that he starts with Mississippi, sort of notoriously the worst of all of them. Still kind of sorry if you're from Mississippi. My brother's living in Mississippi right now. Still kind of the worst of all the states in like every category. No, he's in the Air Force, so he didn't really have much choice. But it's like, lowest literacy rates. Their teachers are like paid the least and their class sizes are the biggest and their test scores are the lowest. Like it's like the worst in everything. That just was some Mississippi trash talk, but I think he starts here specifically because the thing he's going to ask people to do to have optimism might be the hardest here. So let's like kind of list all of these different places like in between the hardest one and the hard thing he's going to ask them to do, so that they can see that everyone also has that task. And I think it's super interesting that he includes northern places in that. What does that tell us? Why does he use the same phrasing, go back to the slums and ghettos of the northern cities, to kind of talk about all the different places they should go?
Well, like I just said about like the bad areas, he says slums and ghettos.
Yes.
Instead of calling like Chicago and Detroit, which would be accurate still.
Okay, good.
So for him to say the slums and ghettos, I feel like it's almost for all onlookers too. It's like, look at where we're coming from.
Yeah, good. Yeah, Daniel. Okay, yeah, and I think what's really important here too is that he's talking about segregation in his I Have a Dream speech. He's talking about Jim Crow laws, and the northern cities were not technically segregated, but they weren't under these Jim Crow laws, but they were absolutely 100% segregated, and that like certain neighborhoods were not, did not allow Black people to come into them, right? Redlining. And so it's important that he points out that this problem is not just a Southern problem, which some people kind of think. Okay, now let's get to that call to action that Ben was talking about. Here's what they're supposed to do. They're supposed to know that somehow this situation can and will be changed. So after all of that anaphora, this is what he gets to for the call to action. Know that somehow that situation can and will be changed. Why would that be the call to action he's trying to achieve here? To me, that seems a little weak. Just know that there's going to be positive change. Like that's not like go and like shake things up. Yeah.
I think that the reason why he uses like the NAPRA is to like send each individual out on like an individual mission with like faith in themselves and faith in like humanity, I guess.
Yeah.
That their situation will change.
Good. So sends them out on a mission to have a kind of faith. And to me, that creates this really interesting juxtaposition. It's like, here is something that you can actually do. And this is why I think Ben was right about like emphasizing the actual action of the sentence. You can go somewhere. Like I can I can physically move from one place to another, and that is something I can measure and know that I did right. I know when I have achieved that goal. So it's like this measurable goal that you can give to people. Go do this thing. And these are people that are hungry for change. They have traveled great distances to be at this march and to hear this man speak, right? And to like participate in social change. I haven't done that. I didn't, travel to DC to do any of the marches. That's like a really big deal for people to go and do that. And so there are people who want to have a job, or like Ali Rose said, a mission. And yet here he is saying that the mission is just that you need to know that somehow this situation can and will be changed. Like it's so vague so far. Like it's like, this is a good start, but we can't absolutely finish the thing. And so to give this message to a crowd that's hungry for change, it makes sense that he wants to repeat the command part of the sentence over and over again. So they feel like they are actually doing something. And then not that this doesn't make a difference. This is obviously about mindset changes and inspiring neighbors and sort of like active, like always sort of having it in the back of your head that you're going to be involved and you're going to make the situation better. It's not nothing, but it's not go back home and like destroy your capital city. It's not like exciting. So he has the exciting part in the commands that he repeats.
It makes me think like how they would just they're like changing their mindset or their beliefs so that when they like teach their kids, like they will be the ones that will ultimately like get rid of this prejudice and racism.
Yeah, absolutely. That kind of like generational change and like the kind of way that you live your life with hope, and that's going to inspire someone else to have hope. That's very powerful, but he's got to make it seem as powerful as it is. And I think he does that with the anaphora. That was a lot. So if you don't have stuff written down yet, you're gonna write like a bunch of that stuff down under effects. What is the effect of this specific anaphora? Let me just say a couple things first. All anaphoras are about repetition, emphasis, and memory. I'm crossing those out. I hope they don't hurt your feelings, but all anaphoras are kind of about this. Like whenever you're repeating something, you obviously want someone to remember it, right? So when you're writing about anaphora, you want to write about the specific anaphora. And like, why is he repeating, not just repeating in general, but repeating go back to over and over again. Who are we missing today? Laura Kate is gone. Okay. Kira is gone. I heard. I feel like there was someone who sat there. No, they're not there anymore. Zach, was there someone who sat? No, Sebastian sat in front of you, but then right in front of Sebastian. I'll go look. Okay. But Cassidy is back. Hello. All right. Okay, once you've got a ton of stuff written down under effects, I'm looking at everyone's paper. You need more stuff. Well, not everyone, but a lot of you need more things written down under effects to get those specifics. And we'll move on. Oh, that's right. Luke transferred to the other class. Ooh. Lost to Luke.
Wait, what's your other, how many Elaine classes do you have? Two?
Just two.
What's your other class?
32 people.
Really?
Yeah, so I don't want to list them off.
What are your literature classes? Do they have like
12 each. Yeah.
Is it boy girl this time?
Yeah, it's actually pretty mixed. Yeah. Okay, you can put that away. Let's get back to talking about some civil disobedience. Yes. Yeah. So, by the way, Thoreau does use an anaphora in his essay. I just got a little tired of talking about it, so we're gonna move on, but he does use an F, right? You might be able to find it on your page. We are.
Really?
Yeah.
Wait, what?
So I'm gonna pull up the stuff that you worked on last time. You were in small groups. If you weren't here, you're just going to listen to what they have to say. And you're just going to explain to me what Thoreau is saying on your page. So why don't I give you 2 minutes to review that with your group, what the main argument is on your page of Thoreau. And if you don't remember what your page is, you can find it on the Canvas assignment.
What point does your page begin? Like if there's a paragraph that started on your page?
It doesn't really matter. If you want to include it, if not, not.
I forgot my transcendental thing at home. Is there like an extra? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna share my screen so that you can see these different memes and so on. How's the Philly brothers?
Wait, did you say that you could have a group member like turn it in for everyone?
Yes.
You said that with the names on it?
Yeah, I
Or is
needed,
it just like,
I probably need the names on it. I'm guessing I can remember based on where you're sitting,
oh, okay,
but yeah.
okay, because then I can. It's just Simon. Simon. No, I like this shirt.
Lady really, Simon, Lady really doesn't want you going for the computer science.
I'm not.
You are? Oh, wow. Okay.
You didn't give me a reason yesterday,
Okay, are you ready? Have you reviewed? You know what your page is about? Okay, then I've just randomly chosen a few people's to look at. That doesn't mean that the person that I pulled up has to speak necessarily. But in this group, we had Simon, Abby, Maxwell, and Allie Rose. So tell me the first page, and don't read, just tell me what the first page of civil disobedience is talking about. If you were confused at any parts of civil disobedience, then you might want to take some notes on the actual text. That's all you need to do. Yes.
I think it's about how government should govern like less.
Yes.
And it's about America's reaction to, or I guess people's reaction to when they are like tied down for.
Okay, so what is it saying that the reaction is?
It's gonna be violent or accusatory.
Okay, good. So it's like about how then if the government is imposing its will too much, people are going to have this bad reaction to the government. That doesn't necessarily mean that people are bad. It's the government's fault for like trying to impose their will too much.
Right.
Okay, so here is your really good, I love this motto here. That government is best which governs least. And then it says, character of the American people has done all that has been accomplished, and it would have done somewhat more if the government had not sometimes got in its way. So for this group, how effective does he think the government is? Yeah, so then what's the purpose of it?
Not allow, like,
Yeah. Okay.
rather than like.
Okay, good. Yeah, Noah?
Since we know that like this guy and Thoreau that he's influenced by the Declaration of Independence, he's probably going to agree with the idea that government is close to tyranny and that we should to modify it time. It makes sense to
Yes, he has this line here that says a single man can bend it to his will, which means that government is also extremely vulnerable. It's vulnerable to like power and money that can corrupt it. Okay, so then what connections did you guys make to the real world and why? You've got it right here.
We talked about how people, it's like,
Yeah.
and, backlash from the government kind of like
Oh, okay, good.
some people like agree with it, but like I would do it that it's like a not so bad.
Yeah, so it's almost like I think Thoreau would say that people wouldn't be behaving badly on planes, or like yesterday I saw that a bunch of it was really distressing. In a school that had a mask mandate, a bunch of parents brought their kids to school without the mask. Did you guys see this? I forgot where it was, Midwest somewhere. They brought their kids to school without a mask, and there was one police officer there, like the school resource officer, that said, like, well, I'm not going to enforce it. And so then like all these kids just like kind of stormed the school, and their parents were like, they can't touch you, they can't do anything about it. And the kids came in, like, I mean, there were like 100 of them or so without masks. And the argument here, Thoreau would say, is like, they wouldn't have done that. They might have been, more courteous or whatever of the rules if there weren't the mandates to begin with, or courteous about other people's sort of health or whatever. Okay. And then we've got our meme. It says, when Karen tells you to put your mask over your nose. All right, that's page 1. Let's do page 2. Who do I got for page 2? I'm looking up. Again, this doesn't have to be the person to talk, but. Okay. No, I just do it through Canvas.
Well, no, it saves it as like an actual PDF document.
No. Oh, I don't know. Okay, so Cameron, Juliana, Athena, what is page 2 all about?
We should do what we can do right, so the process, what we think is right, so the law.
Yeah.
He's also talking about how men, like that's
Yeah, good. So what does that mean that the government, he keeps calling the government a machine, and that people who serve the government like become the machine? Tell me about machines. We're going back to like metaphors and why it would be a good metaphor. Ashton?
Well, a machine receives commands from its owner
Mm-hmm.
or its supervisor, so maybe that the government is not making its own decisions, but it's actually getting decisions about from some other like group.
Okay, good. So it's also like talking about majority rules, and how majority rules doesn't necessarily equal morally right, but that might be what makes the machine go. Maxwell?
Machines don't really have feelings, and they kind of just find the most efficient way to do something that kind of makes the most profit on something that maybe a machine kind of pick up. So ideal, because when it comes to look after the welfare of people, shouldn't have other people that have feelings.
Okay, good. Yeah, there needs to be some emotional component. It says the mass of men serve the state thus, not as men mainly, but as machines. So it's like you could serve men, but you don't. You're serving the state. You're serving the machine. Ali Rose?
The thought machine entire purpose is, and if it fails, it's success.
Yes.
I don't know what I'm saying, but they, oh my gosh, I lost that.
But it's like the machine is easily breakable too. Machines are actually quite fragile. If one little part of the machine messes up, then the entire machine kind of crumbles. So if you have something like slavery introduced into the machine, or the machine built around slavery in this case, but if you have something terrible like the Mexican-American War, but according to Thoreau, built into the machine, then it can be fragile and break easily. Athena? Conscience? Yeah. Uh-huh. Yes. Yes, and so it's almost, it like deletes the consciousness from, or the conscientiousness from each individual. Noble?
So a couple things. So, one, the purpose of a machine can be good or bad. Got a lot there, like tools that can make a machine that has purpose to be good, and a machine that has purpose to like bad.
Right.
And then also during this time, something that like I found interesting, like well, something that was starting to happen more was companies starting to make more like replaceable parts.
Yeah.
And it's like so that someone breaks you off the back of the machine. I feel like kind of like almost like that kind of jumped out at me a little bit, and it seems almost like you kind of like saying like this new concept like they can be replaced like totally,
Yeah.
better.
So it could be improved upon. Good. I like that. Abby?
That like the disability, goes back to the vulnerable,
Mm-hmm.
because there, there are things that can be replaced. Which means that each individual piece, it does have, like the opportunity to be broken.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's like the, some Secretary of Agriculture that we never think about. I don't know who our Secretary of Agriculture is. If that person is corrupt, it has the ability to like ruin the whole machine. Even if it is replaceable, you could replace it, but for a while.
Have you seen Songbird?
Songbird? Mm-mm.
It was a movie that came out last year. It was about the COVID virus.
Uh-huh.
It's still around in 2024, so like the 2023,
Uh-huh.
COVID 2023, something like that.
Oh
And,
no.
the Department of Waste Management or something has like risen to the top because they're like in charge of
Oh.
sanitary, so they're like all militarized and stuff.
Is it a comedy or is it a, oh no.
It's like a thriller drama.
Interesting.
But it's really scary because it's really realistic.
Yeah.
Like it could happen.
Oh,
Can I use the restroom?
yeah. Let's look at page 3 now.
But it's like very cool.
I want to watch that. All right, page 3, this group, whoever was in Spencer's group back here, tell me what page 3 is all about. Let's move it a little bit quicker. Let's just go through the main points and show the memes, and then we'll move on.
Okay, so basically like so he like talks a lot about like how he feels like he can't recognize the government, so it's government, and like talks a lot about how you have like a right to like refuse allegiance to the government, like you
Yeah.
So like, kind of like in the machine, like, you can be like a disruption within the machine. And, talk about that a little bit. And like that, the government didn't change how they're communicating about it.
Mhm.
So it's not okay.
Okay, good. He also hints at what the consequences might be and how he feels about the consequences. When he says, if I have unjustly wrested a plank from a drowning man, Rose, I must restore it to him, though I drown myself. So he's not saying that like, because I did this thing in righteousness, the government doesn't have the right to then like imprison me. In fact, he loved, I don't know if you could tell, he loved that he was put into jail for not paying his taxes. And in fact, the story goes that that night someone paid, or the next morning, so he was one night in jail. Actually, did I tell you the story about how he got arrested? Okay, sorry. So this is the guy who lived at Walden Pond. Henry David Thoreau was actually a pretty wealthy guy. He owned a pencil factory. When the big pencil was what he was in charge of. And he was successful and had a lot of money, but he decided not that important to him, left that money with the family, and then made a cabin out in the woods. It was on Emerson's property, actually. And he built this cabin from the ground up. He grew his own food, he hunted, he fished, he did all of that. Yes, he did go into town every once in a while, probably every other weekend, I think, to have dinner with his friends. So he wasn't completely living in solitude, but still like trying to live off the grid. He did that for a long time. He wasn't as strict about it after a couple of years. After 2 years, he wrote his book Walden, and that was a bestseller, really popular. He continued to live out there sometimes. And one night he was coming in from his cabin in the woods, and he came into town, and the constable met him at the edge of town and said, "You have to pay your taxes. You haven't paid your taxes for 6 years." And he said, "I won't do it. There's no way I'm paying my taxes, not under this corrupt government." And so they arrested him, took him to jail. He was, thinking about these ideas in prison. And the next morning, someone came and paid his taxes for him and bailed him out. And he was actually really mad about it. He was like, who did this thing? And we're not totally sure who did it, but speculation, and it's pretty certain, was that his aunt came and paid his taxes for him. This grown man and his aunt came. And the idea is that she was also a strident anti-slavery person. She was an abolitionist. She wrote pamphlets and passed them around, like really active. But she was also wealthy, and it was so embarrassing for her to have this nephew that was in prison for not paying his taxes. So she bailed him.
It's like, guys, look up, like I'm in prison.
Yeah.
Right, civil disobedience. My aunt's here.
Yeah, it's pretty embarrassing. I think that's probably why he didn't reveal who it was, but all the evidence points to it being his aunt. But it's Sincere. It says you should behave this way, even if it costs you your existence as a people. And right in that line, it's important to think about when we say this line, the people, like it's part of our founding documents, we the people, right? So he is saying, even if it costs us that identity as a country, it is important to resist these things because it's according to conscience. Okay, let's look at your meme. This is mostly a protest. It's not, generally speaking, unruly. And then here it says nothing to see here. All right, let's look at the next page. We've got some. Yeah, he was slumming it a little bit.
Yeah, he's like,
Yeah.
It's like, you're bad for my rep.
All right, page 4. Tell me what page 4 is all about.
Page 4 is all about like voting power or the lack thereof.
Yeah.
And so one thing that we had in there was, it says all voting is sort of right. He also said a wise man will not leave the right to the mercy of chance. And so he kind of compares voting to like the game of chance. He talks about the checkers backgammon. He says like this isn't a game you can really win. So, he also threw in. Said, how many men are there to a square 1,000 miles in this country? So he's saying like people actually have real power.
Yes.
Across the entire nation.
Yes, it feels a little anti-democratic in this a lot. Like he's saying, like, just because you vote for something, just because you're voting for something does not mean that you are doing anything for it. And in fact, by voting for it, you're actually showing that you sort of agree with this system of government.
Oh, yeah.
You're implicitly supporting the government.
I had this one line that we liked, where it said, when the majority shall at length, when the majority shall at length vote for the abolition of slavery, it will be because they are indifferent to slavery, or because there is but little slavery left to be abolished by the vote, which is really true. Like, last year we talked about how the Emancipation Proclamation did nothing for the slaves, because he said, in all active areas, again, like all areas against the US, that's what like the wording is. And so he didn't free anyone in the US, and then he also has no power over the Confederation. So he had, they were making to not free any slaves with the Emancipation Proclamation.
Right.
It was just like, I think, words.
It was rhetoric.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, with how we were talking about Martin Luther King, with like, when we talked about Jim Crow laws, and the North is like, oh, we're not enforcing them, like that's part of their indifference to slavery.
Yes,
Either
exactly.
way, his argument.
So this says how I see voting and how Thoreau sees voting. That one's so accurate. Okay, good. Lexi. What's your last name? Thank you. I knew that. Don't tell me. All right, page 5. What's going on this page?
Main point that they're trying to make is that, so it's mainly talking about like unjust loss and how government, like, they talk a lot about that you need to be sure of what you're supporting. Growth says a lot about how he thinks people just kind of like, oh, well, I need to vote. So you're kind of a random vote, which is pretty controversial because it's very biased.
Yeah.
And so he's talking about how unjust laws do indeed exist, and you need to individually make your own choice on what you believe in.
Yeah.
You can't support both. You need to make one choice or the other.
Yes, very like black and white thinking here. He talks about being a majority of one and having to stand up completely for your own decision by putting your whole like heart and soul and body into it. And body in particular. I mean, think about if it would work. If everyone stopped paying their taxes who didn't believe in a certain aspect of government, would it work?
Yes, no one would pay taxes.
I mean,
On one issue or any issue?
On any issue.
okay, let's just say everyone who is angry at the government for this recent vaccine mandate for employers, right? So lots of people are mad about that, right? Lots of people are mad that they say the government has no right to mandate that employers like basically mandate their employees or get rid of their employees or have this fine or whatever, right? So let's say all of those people that disagree with that law and think that law is completely unjust stop paying their taxes. Would it work? That's a lot of money lost.
They can't put everyone in
It
jail.
sort of depends on how big the group is, because if it's really big, then yes, it will work.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty big group, isn't it?
That can probably
They
work
seem,
out.
they're loud at least. I don't know. I don't know if they're a big group
That's
or if
what I've
they're
been
just.
thinking, it's like, there might be more of them, or less than of them that we teach, because it's like all over the.
Yeah.
news, it's like that.
More.
I think there's more
Most
than
people
we
are
think.
silent.
Most people with that opinion are also kind of more like themselves, and so there's probably more than, I think there's like 4 loud people, but there's like.
Yeah,
50
maybe.
million.
I think it would work, honestly, even if it was a small chunk. We don't have like the widest margins for how for our taxes versus like what we're spending. In fact, it's, a deficit. And then also, if we were going to imprison all of those people for not paying their taxes, like if you're going to go to jail for tax evasion, our prisons are already pretty jam-packed. So to have all those people suddenly, and especially white collar prison, they're all going to have to go to white collar, like there's not enough of them. So I do think it would like really, it would be the friction to stop the machine. So if you're really against that mandate, go ahead.
Especially if the ball got rolling. I think like, even if it was a small group, a larger group of people would join them so they didn't have to pay their taxes.
Right, it's like, well, I'm also against taxes. I don't really care about the COVID stuff, but yeah, I can see that. Ashton?
I'm gonna say like prisons are also run on the people's taxes, so they wouldn't be able to put us in prison.
Good
because
point.
they-
Good point, good point. I'm gonna do one more page, so Skyly and Rachel's group get out of it, but we're gonna go to,
So no meme.
oh, sorry. Oh, so no meat, that was so sassy. I don't support war, but here's a gun. I don't get it.
Like it talks about a lot of like not passing supporting things. It's just like I don't support war, but still passing supporting it by paying like taxes.
Oh, okay, I get it. Yeah. All right. All right, this page. Okay, page 6. What's happening on this page?
Oh, so basically, he's talking about how the government is like corrupt. It basically like comes to what we're talking about, and he's just like, I'm not going to pay taxes to the government that is not doing anything about its problems.
Okay,
So-
good. Good. There's a couple just like amazing quotes on this page. Under a government which imprisons any unjustly. Oh, am I looking at the wrong one? Have I been looking at the wrong one all along?
They're on SDR.
No, just the wrong page. Are we on page 7? I meant to be on page 7. Yeah, I've been on the wrong page. Sorry. Thanks. Good job. Let's look at your meme. It says first box, pay your taxes. Second box, civil disobedience. And it's the Drake meme. Pay your taxes. No, thank you. I want to look at page 7, Skyly. Here we go.
Oh,
Yeah, another Drake saying you support a cause, actually doing something about the cause. All right, tell me about this page. What's the argument here? Skyly's group, whoever was in that group. Is it Al and Laura Kate?
Yeah.
Okay, tell me about it. What's the argument?
So this page talks a lot about how my stuff are the governments, and it's just definitely favored towards the white majority. And then he starts talking about like what normal people can do, like regular citizens make a difference, because I feel like the only people, like total people going out there, but people are just like, oh yeah, I support it, but then they don't do anything about it. They're just like, oh, that's a good cause,
Good.
but then they go back to their normal lives. If he's just saying that if everyone who actually cares would do something about it, then it really would change things.
Good. You cannot go back to your normal life. And these are the quotes that I love. He says, under a government which imprisons any unjustly. So anyone who is imprisoned unjustly, and this, he's talking about slavery here. The true place for a just man is also a prison. If we lived our lives according to that concept, that would be very intense. And then he says, the only house in a slave state in which a free man can abide with honor is prison. It's the only place that you can live in a slave state and still have honor. And he's talking about like abolitionists too. Abolitionists like his aunt who lived in a mansion. And this is the one where, or it was right before this that he said being rich, it's gonna be really hard to live a good life. His rich aunt who lived in a really nice house, she is not living in a just place where you can abide with honor. So it's like Lexi said in her group, it's an all or nothing thing. You are either going to cast your vote with your whole person, not just a strip of paper, or you are not going to have honor. You don't get to have both. So their meme over here, we already looked at, and then let's look at the last meme, but not necessarily talk about it. Rachel. I skipped it. It's hard to do this with you when you don't have to see it. It says, can we not follow the law? And then it says BCE government, I think. Sure, but I'll kill you. Yeah, I mean, that is part of it, right? It's that you still have to accept the consequences of whatever you're doing. In fact, in this case, the consequences are the effective act. It's like seeing that he's in prison is the important part. Him not paying his taxes is like pretty important, but him actually going to jail is way more important. Okay, that went a little bit longer than I wanted. Here I am on the big screen. So you guys are now in those same groups you were working in before, and Cassidy, you'll be in a group. I'll put you in. You are going to go back to Canvas. And you are going to look at specific acts of civil disobedience and decide whether you guys think they are justified or not. So it's under today's module, September 14th, and you're finding this one that says civil disobedience slides. And then you're going to click on the presentation. All right, while you guys are getting your computers loaded up, you can claim, because I don't want more than one group doing each of these. So look up here, we've got Salt Lake City's Black Lives Matter protest, which we kind of talked about last time. Just America's 2020 Black Lives Matter protest, professional sports Black Lives Matter protest, any anti-mask protest, Arizona teachers sick out about kids coming back to school, potentially with COVID, illegal immigration as an act of civil disobedience, Cassius Clay, that's Muhammad Ali refusing to be drafted, Confederate monument vandals, Kim Davis refusing a marriage certificate. That was quite a long time ago, but she was in the Midwest, and after they passed gay marriage, she said, I'm not going, she was a county clerk, and she said, I won't sign any of these marriage certificates. Bundy occupation of the National Wildlife Refuge. This was a family that decided that that was their refuge. The Irish hunger strikes. This was during the 70s. No, this was during the 1970s, during like the Troubles, and when the IRA was fighting to get British influence out of Ireland. A bunch of people went to prison for that, and they went on hunger strikes. Some people died. White supremacy rally in Charlottesville. You can examine whether you think that was an act of civil disobedience, and the January 6th Capitol riots. So that list, I'll give you 30 seconds, talk with your group and decide what your first and second choice are, maybe third choice too.
Wait, so we're just deciding if it's civilly disobedient.
You're going to have to decide whether you think it was justified and effective and things like that. But mostly you're going to be talking about whether it counts as civil disobedience.
Then how do we know if people have chosen it or not?
I'm gonna call out and give you guys your groups. Okay, don't get too attached because someone might take yours, but 30 seconds to decide which ones you want. Okay, Juliana's group, which one do you want? Ollie Rose's group, which one do you want? Going over here, let's do Zoe and Zach's group back here. Which one you want? All right, Noah, which one you want? So you need time to consult? M? All right, Daniel, which one you want? Okay. Nate, which one you want? Teo, which one you want? Oh, sorry, Spencer, which one you want? Did I get everyone? Okay, so what you are going to do, let me explain real quick. You are going to read the linked article. There is a chance that our awesome thoughtful district blocked the article listed, and I've got options for you if that is the case. It doesn't really matter which article you list as long as it's from some kind of credible source. So mostly these are Washington Post, New York Times articles. You're going to find at least one more article about that particular action. So you're doing a little research to find more. And then you are going to create a Google Slides presentation with 7 slides. And I've got the different slides that you're going to use. I want you to make sure that they are engaging slides. So you're doing that however you can. Feel free to get creative. And we will be looking at them maybe. I'm not totally sure if we will be looking at them next time or not. But you're going to share those slides with me. Does anyone have any questions? We'll see where we are at the end of class. Yeah, Ashton?
So are we considering here to find one more essay about it?
Yeah, yes. In addition to this link.
All right.
Hey, go ahead. Okay, so if you are working from home, you can choose whichever one that you want to. I'm up there on the big screen. You can choose whichever one that you want to, whether it's taken or not. But you're gonna have to make the slideshow on your own. We have about 30 minutes left in class, so spend about 30 minutes on it. Wherever you get to is fine. All right, then that is it for today.